Hey everyone, today I'm going to be going for a ride and talking about some of the experiences I've had with this drivetrain right here. This is the Box 2 and it's a 9-speed. And although I had previously had some thoughts like this drivetrain has helped solidify some of my opinions on how many gears you really need on your bike. So let's go for a ride and let's get right into it. Before I get riding, I thought I'd give some specs on this drivetrain specifically. This isn't really going to be a review of this, although I'll talk about it a little bit. Just want to share the setup. It's a Box 2 9-speed with a 50-tooth granny gear and a 30-tooth chainring up front. So pretty good gear range. Is it as big as some of the current ones right now with 51, 52 tooth? No, but plenty. Let's get riding and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. So for a while now, we've had drivetrains that are 12 gears in the back. It's kind of the gold standard. You usually end up with, a 10 or 11 tooth small cog, and then a 51, a 52, or like I have a 50 tooth as your granny gear. 7, 8, 9, and even 10 to some extent were kind of the standards for years. But as we got rid of the 2x drivetrain, not even going to mention the 3x, we ended up needing more gear range in the back. And so what ended up happening is we went to a 10-speed and an 11-speed, and you just slowly, that gear in the back got bigger. It was like a 42 tooth was really big, and then it moved to a 46, then a 48, and then we got a 50 tooth from SRAM with Eagle. It's kind of stabilized a little bit, although there is talk of 13-speed drivetrains, and we've seen a couple out there. But as I've ridden them, and as I've ridden this bike with its 9-speed, I thought I'd share my thoughts on how many gears do you actually need? Does it even matter how many are in there? As long as your small one is 10 or 11 and your big one's around 50. I've ridden GX Eagle, I've ridden XO1, so a pretty good spectrum there. As well as, the SLX 12-speed, Dior 12-speed. And the thing that I found is that I didn't really like them. I get why instead of just going really big like this one, they decided to also add gears, but it's just had some downsides to it to me. So what are the benefits of having more gears, 11 or 12 speed? Basically what you end up doing is you create less of a jump in how hard or easy it is to pedal between those gears as you're shifting. You don't want to go from having to have a cadence of 70 to all of a sudden your cadence needs to be 150. And that is something I've noticed with this 9-speed drivetrain. The gaps are much bigger, but I'm kind of used to it now. There are times when I don't like it, when it bothers me a little bit. Although something like that, where you come down to descent and then you've got a hill, you don't have to dump your gears as fast. You're only going 1 or 2 instead of 4 or 5. So there's less room for the derailleur to mess up or have any issues there. It's mostly annoying though when you're going hard and the terrain is rolling a lot and you're wanting to maintain a cadence and a power output. It can be a little annoying. But to be honest, that's the only advantage I see to a 12-speed drivetrain. And for example, I recently upgraded the drivetrain on one of my primary bikes, and I went with an 11-speed, which is still pretty close to 12, but it's not quite as much. So why did I pick that 11? I didn't want the jumps of the 9 like this, but I didn't want some of those downsides of the 12. One thing that I have noticed with the 12-speed drivetrains is they're a lot more finicky when it comes to adjusting them and to when things get dirty. They have increased the overall width of the hub, I guess you would say, so that the gaps aren't as close, but it's still a very tight clearance, even with a thinner chain. And so if it gets dirty at all, I've just found no matter the level of drivetrain, no matter how nice, it's struggled. It starts to try to shift into other gears or not shift correctly, and that's not all that fun. It's really annoying, actually. The 11-speed chain is only, I want to say 0.2 millimeters wider, but I've never had problems with it. At least not nearly as much as the 12-speed. On that width side, a lot of people will say, you know, a thicker chain is going to be stronger, so less prone to breaking. Not that chains are breaking all the time. I think chains are really well engineered and designed and built now. But I have broken, I don't know, a handful of chains. Of the 5 or 6 that I have, close to half have been 12-speed. I don't know that I fully buy into that argument of the thickness making it stronger. I think a lot more of it's going to come down to the grade, like how nice of a chain you get. I think that plays a bigger role in how often you might see a breakage, but it's just something to consider because thicker pieces of metal does kind of seem like it's going to be stronger to me. One other advantage to a non-12 speed is weight. Unless you're going with that real high-end stuff, all else equal, if you're missing 1 or 2 or 3 cogs on the back, it's going to be a little bit lighter. I personally don't care that much about weight. I could lose a few pounds on my body before anything on my bike first, but a lot of people do. And I think it does actually play a role in your full suspensions, where all that additional weight on the back can affect the way that rear end is moving and how it's responding to bumps. There's a little bit of a caveat here though. Because of the way the industries work, the drivetrains that don't have 12 speeds or 13, they tend to be seen as more of the budget level, and so they're not as available in as nice of materials. They're just big old steel sprockets. Whether or not you can find an actually lighter one is going to be, I don't know. I haven't really looked into it, but I think maybe an 11 speed it'll be a bit easier. I'm not very picky when it comes to components in general, so you might disagree with me on all of this. I sometimes think of how much something kind of a mindset takes over a market or an industry or something like that. While there are some benefits, there's always going to be benefits. Otherwise, I think it would go the way of, I don't know, linkage forks. But I think it's important to evaluate your own experiences with it, as well as think, what do I really need? That's kind of one way I try to approach the reviews I do. There's many bikes I've gotten in that are not something that I would normally pick, or they might be looked down on because of the price point or seen as outdated by the hardcore people. It's going to probably appeal to someone. And I actually think many of you already have that mindset. I did a poll on both Instagram and YouTube, and I had over 200 responses, and it was, which gear do you prefer? With 12, 11, 10, and then I made a mistake of putting 7, 8, 9 and leaving out you single speed people. But 44%, so basically half of everyone said 12 speed. That's kind of what I'd expect. Next biggest was 11, and then 10 and less than 10 were, I don't know, around 15% each. Obviously my audience is, you know, not representative of everyone who rides a bike, but it gives you some indicator.
I'm about to hit some nasty downhill. I'm not talking like rampage, big drops and stuff like that. I mean torn up and unpredictable. Never know what you're gonna get. So I'll kind of wrap up the talking portion. But my point is, you don't necessarily have to have 12 speed. That's kind of my point. In fact, that's not my preference. In my ideal world, I think I would have basically what I have, an 11 speed with a 51 tooth. I think it's great. I think the spacing between the gears is good, both in the gear ratios and the actual physical distance. I think it's not as finicky as a 12 speed, and this is coming from someone who rides in mud, in dirt, in snow, in negative 30 degree Fahrenheit, across the whole spectrum. I think I've just found 12 speed is not my thing. Might be yours, but are there things I would change maybe about this 9 speed right here? Yeah, definitely. The gaps are just a little too big, but it's been reliable. It gives me the gear range that I need, and yeah, it's kind of impressed me. But I want to know your thoughts, so leave a comment down below. If you didn't see that poll, didn't answer, or even if you did, let me know how many gears you think you need or what your preference is and why. And let's get some discussion going down there, and maybe you can convince me I am just totally in the weeds and I should be running 12 speed on everything. And then as soon as 13 comes out, I should jump on that train as well. But thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.